I love the ocean. I've grown up by it all my life, and lived in a fishing village and have always been around boats. And Bluenose is probably the most beautiful boat in the world. It certainly is one of the most beautiful boats in the world. The Bluenose is an incredible story. In the story is a lot of heroism and persistence and a will to survive, to succeed, and to win. It all relates back, for me, it relates back to the province and the East Coast, and an importance I feel in our having the will to do all those things and how it represents that. There's no cinematic experience that's anything like a dome. This is 360 degrees. It goes all around you and all over your head. It's really like being on planet Earth, outdoors, just like our skyscape. It wasn't possible to do this before now. The technology, the computer technology, makes it possible to bend those pictures around and make them look real. So it's almost like real life being in a dome, surrounded by these pictures. It's new technology, it's the way of the future, and it's great to have it here in Nova Scotia.
We wanted to tell the story of the North Atlantic right whale after we took a trip to Briar Island, and we met some of the captains of the whale watching vessels and talked to some of the locals and learned the stories about the right whales that come every year to the Bay of Fundy, and we were absolutely amazed by the story and the fact that the local people know all the whales. Many of them have names. They keep track of their calves. They know them by their personalities. It's an amazing story, and they come every year around the same time. They winter down south, and they often come back with new calves. And it's a really amazing story that we just really felt we had to tell. When we did the whale story, the crisis wasn't happening, which was interesting. So it was a little bit of a different context when we created that story. However, I think it's very relevant because it really helps to connect the audience to these whales as, I'm almost going to say human. They're not human creatures, but they have human-like characteristics. It's a mother and a calf. They have a very dramatic story. There's life and death, emotion, birth. And I think people need to connect better with these creatures to understand the real tragedy of what's happening. There's only around 500 of them in the world, and to lose 14 of 500 of these magnificent creatures, it's devastating. I feel like we're helping people to connect and understand their story better.
As a marine biology student, I mostly study conservation and resource management with the aspect of community outreach. So I do spend a lot of time in the tropics looking at links between anthropogenic impacts on the environment and population dynamics. The major source of mortality is blunt force trauma, which is caused by collisions of shipping vessels, as well as entanglement in fishing gear. So they do have some regulations set in place right now to reduce the speed of shipping vessels and change their paths so they don't disturb the population as much. However, there's many loopholes in the system, as it only applies to specific vessels and at certain times within the year. So it is evident that stronger regulations need to be put in place, and proper enforcement definitely needs to be made.
It takes a village to raise a child. It really took a city and a lot of people in it to actually pull this together. The list of people who made this happen would be too long to put into almost any kind of a journal other than a book.
We actually worked with many different private companies and along with government, the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic. It was an amazing collaboration. The Maritime Museum was looking for ways to tell their stories that were more in keeping with today, so they could connect with young people who are digitally sophisticated. And we also partnered with some technological companies. Silverback Games is a wonderful company who have been making games for many years, and producing virtual reality experiences, and they were fascinated by the thought of creating something inside of a dome, a new kind of immersive experience.
The Maritime Museum is involved as a partner. It's a unique kind of partnership. We needed a space on the waterfront. We needed, with the dome, it needed to be where there were people, and there is nowhere on the East Coast where there are more people than on the Halifax Waterfront. The museum had a very real interest in the dome because the museum tells stories. They wanted to be a part of a storytelling device that was new and cutting edge and would appeal to youth and would keep them relevant. And they liked the stories we were telling. The whale story, the blue nose story. These are things that are involved with the marine aspects of our province.
We wanted to partner with them because we love the stories they tell, and of course the blue nose was a big one for them. And we wanted to tell that story, and so we've partnered with them so that we're on their property, and we actually we sell a combined ticket that allows people to go and see the museum and also see our shows as well. So it's a perfect partnership.
I really enjoyed it. It was nice to see the ship sailing from a different perspective. And I think all of my shipmates should go and have a look at it. It's lovely. The music is very moving with the sailing scenes. I highly recommend it.
So what's your role on the Blue Nose?
I am the chief mate. I joined after this documentary was shot, so it was nice to see some shots of last year.
It's fantastic. Made me so proud to be a Canadian.
It was heart touching. Yeah, it really was.
Made me think about it.
Yeah, and it was informative too, not knowing that this was in our waters.
It's awesome. It's an immersive experience, but it's also a very emotional experience. The whole subject matter of the whales. I haven't been in a dome theater like this, and seeing, feeling like you're in the water with the whales, it was spectacular. I really encourage everyone to come.